Awesome. And welcome to Winter Garden Yoga's newest podcast. I'm Brian Friedman, the co-owner and the co-director of Winter Garden Yoga. And I'm truly excited and honored to have Brett Jones speaking with us today. If you're familiar with the Functional Yoga Instruction Manual and you've seen Brett Jones' name, here he is live and in person to talk to us. Brett, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly, Brian. First, it's thank you for the opportunity to be on the podcast and to speak to your audience. So a little bit about me. I don't know where to start. Certified athletic trainer, CSCS, been in the fitness industry for 25 plus years now. Transitioned out of athletic training, was very fortunate to get in on the ground. Early adopter, I guess I would say, rather than the ground floor, early adopter on kettlebell training and functional movement systems with Gray Cook and Pavel. Pavel, kettlebell, Gray Cook, FMS, just to separate those silos. So been blessed and fortunate to work with those individuals and within those systems. Been traveling and teaching with Pavel for 16 years now. Been traveling, teaching with Gray for 13, and actually worked with Gray in my training room and at his clinics from 95 to 97. So a good amount of time in.
Excellent. And what is your current title with the SFG group?
So within StrongFirst, I'm the director of education. So I manage the curriculum for all of our one-day courses, our 4 certifications, manage our leadership, and work with the HQ to move things forward and build StrongFirst.
Awesome. Can you talk a little bit about each of those sectors? You mentioned one-day trainings and certifications.
Certainly. So within StrongFirst, we call ourselves School of Strength. The school has 3 branches: bodyweight, barbell, and kettlebell. I guess I'd say 4 branches. We have some really good specialty workshops like Plan Strong, Strong Endurance, Second Wind, things of those nature that really kind of expand on some of the things we do in our principles. So within each of those modalities, barbell, bodyweight, and kettlebell, we offer one-day trainings that are open to anyone to help learn better form, better technique, get a window into our principles and what we do. And then we also offer a level 1, level 2 kettlebell certification, the SFG. And we have a SFL, which is our barbell certification, and SFB, which is our bodyweight certification. So within that, it just means I'm responsible for 14 different manuals and instructor guides and about 100 members of leadership and people that teach various aspects of what we do. So
Awesome.
Keeps me busy.
Yes. And have you physically taught all around the world? I know that SFG is worldwide. Have you been around the world teaching as well?
Most of the world. I haven't been all around the world yet. But yes, we're in 43 or more countries at this point, where we have established country leaders and things being taught. It's taken me to Hungary, Amsterdam, Copenhagen, the UK, Brazil. So yeah, it's taken me all over the various locations. I haven't hit Southeast Asia yet, or the other side of the international date line. So maybe one of these days.
Awesome. And where can people find out more about StrongFirst?
StrongFirst.com.
Okay. It's no special spellings or anything.
Oh, just one word, StrongFirst, and you'll get what you need there.
Okay. Awesome. And so if I heard you correctly, you've been in this industry one way or the other for 25 years?
Yes. So 25 plus. So yeah, I transitioned out of athletic training into the fitness world by running a hospital fitness center in Clarion, PA, and did that for 5 years, and then more worked at a private club in Pittsburgh, and then out to San Diego and back. And yeah, it's been as Grateful Dead once noted, what a long, strange trip it's been.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can empathize with that. Uh, I was a professional musician, and somehow I wound up owning a yoga studio.
Wow.
We'll save that for another podcast.
That would be a good story to hear.
But for all the time that you've put in, all the people that you've seen, all the stuff that you've seen, is there a certain fitness myth that you wish would go away, or is just one, maybe a couple of things you could think of as like, ugh, I'm tired of hearing this?
Yeah, it's funny. We were chatting just a little bit before we started recording, and
Mm-hmm.
the fitness myths are many, and but yet I sit here and think, and I'm like, I'm so divorced from some of those that it doesn't strike me. I apologize if my cat has decided that it is time to make her presence known, so I apologize if that's
That's
coming
fine.
through. Um, but there's a few. Don't let your knees go past your toes. Squats are bad for your knees. People see me swing a kettlebell and they're like, "Oh, you're going to hurt your back." Like
Mm-hmm.
we have these things that we're fearful of, and probably that might be the one of the ways to pin it is just getting rid of some fear-based mindset that people fear doing things
Mm-hmm.
for because they think it's going to put them at risk or something like that. They're one of the few memes that's out there in the world today that I actually do like to a certain extent is that exercise is a celebration of what your body can do, not a punishment for what you ate or
Right.
whatever you did over the weekend. So just enjoy moving. So it's knees over toes. Like, good luck going up a flight of steps if you're never going to let your knees go past your toes. Like, it's a natural movement. You need to have access to that dorsiflexion and control. Deadlifting and its ballistic cousin, the kettlebell swing, um, fantastic exercises. It's how we move. It's how we pick things up and do things. So but yeah, I think just kind of running through in my head again, I think getting rid of the kind of fear-based mindset would be a wonderful thing.
I got you. And I know you're throwing some terminology out there, like a kettlebell swing and fundamental movement patterns. You mentioned the squat.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about maybe where does the fear come from that we should not squat? Where does it stem from? How do we curb that fear, etc.?
Well, there was certainly a period of time where the message being put out there was that if don't squat below parallel, don't let your knees go past your toes. Probably somebody during a step aerobics class had knee pain, and so somebody laid down an edict that you weren't supposed to let those things happen. I'd say some well-intentioned individuals probably were trying to put some guardrails in place
Mm-hmm.
to help people navigate this movement. But squatting, the symmetrical stance, is something that we use. It's part of our developmental sequence as we grow into mobile humans. It is a position of rest. It's a position of investigation. Anybody that has kids has seen their kids squat down and play or investigate
Mm-hmm.
for usually not short periods of time, where they'll spend some time down there doing that. When we work, even if it's whether we're doing work around the house or whether we're doing a job out there in the world, we're usually having to squat down and manipulate something with our hands, and while we're in that lowered position, so we raise and lower our center of mass. You look at athletics. Force production, force absorption happens in this symmetrical stance. So it's a pattern that we need to be good at. And probably the technical or reason that people can't squat is they don't squat.
Right.
And so we
Right.
lose the ability. And it is one of those fundamental movements that we should have access to. So I think, giving people successful strategies to regain that pattern, build it appropriately. We're not going
Mhm.
to take, executive Jane's been behind a desk for, 15, 20 plus years. It's not going to be 0 to, full squat. It's
Right.
going to be, there's some things that we're going to put in place to make sure that we regain that squat in a very healthy and natural fashion.
Right. And to be clear, for people who are listening and watching, we're not necessarily talking about like a loaded front squat or back squat. We're just talking about the ability, body weight only, to squat fully and stand up fully. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
so in my mind, and this, with my FMS background and the things that we do, like if we pull apart movement quality and exercise, like at some point we have to realize that all exercise is contrived.
Mhm.
We were humans before we were exercisers.
Mhm. Right. Right.
So, we have these fundamental patterns that we should have access to and we should be able to do things with. And then we choose exercises based on goals and what's best for the person. So the ability to squat, to access that symmetrical stance pattern is just something that we should have. That's not an exercise thing. That's a human movement thing.
Right.
If we have access to that human movement pattern, we can then choose to use it as an exercise. And then that allows us to build strength, capacity, physical development, and things that we want to be good at.
Correct. Whether it's kettlebells, barbells, body weight, etc., whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And what I've seen, and maybe you can comment on this too, is what I've seen, especially more than ever, now more than ever. I'm in my 50s now. I'm 51. And I used to kind of, I don't know if lip service is the right idea, but like I used to just kind of say, yeah, yeah, yeah. Getting up and down off the ground is important. But now I'm understanding that like deeply, because I'm working with an age group that's my age, maybe a little older. And it seems like people have the model reversed. It's like, let's do exercise machine type things, but not worry about getting up and down off the ground. Or let's do leg extensions, but not squat. Does that make sense?
Sure. I think that when you work with an aging population, their number one fear is falling.
Mm-hmm.
Their number two fear is not being able to get up if they do fall.
Mm-hmm.
And so, an exercise like the get up, some of the yoga asanas and routines are, it is based on you moving you well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that again, that those fundamental capacities and things that we should have access to. Within FMS, we say move well, move often.
Mm-hmm.
Well, move well enough to be able to
Right.
adapt in a positive fashion to the stress you're going to be placed under. If you don't check that box first, the positive stress of exercise can be a negative.
Correct.
Because you're not moving well enough to be able to adapt to it. So just human first, exerciser second. I think if we clear those baselines, move well enough to be able to adapt in a positive fashion, and then move forward into well-designed exercise routines, we're way better off.
Excellent. And you're throwing out another term, your other silo, FMS, functional movement systems. It used to be functional
Yes.
movement screen.
Correct. So we brought some things under the umbrella of functional movement systems, and that is the functional movement screen,
Mm-hmm.
which is the fitness professionals and the end of treatment release criteria, for lack of a better term, for clinical folks.
Mm-hmm.
We have the SFMA, Selective Functional Movement Assessment, and that's a clinical diagnostic tool for looking at pain from a movement-based approach, find where you need to put your attention. And now we have the fundamental capacity screen, which is our performance check. So those three things and the systems and philosophy that go with those form functional movement systems.
And where can folks learn more about that?
Functionalmovement.com.
Functionalmovement.com. Okay, awesome. Great. So just to kind of wrap this one question up, Generally speaking, try not to be afraid of fundamental human movement patterns. We should be able to squat. We should be able to, well, I know you were saying kettlebell swing, but a kettlebell swing is an extension of a hip hinge. Should be able to hip hinge. We should be able to lunge because that's an extension of walking up the steps. You mentioned stair climbing. And if we can't do those things, those most fundamental things, get with someone, an FMS professional, someone you trust, someone who's qualified to get you up and running, literally, before you start throwing kettlebells around, before you start doing yoga. Is that a safe assumption, a safe summary?
Yeah, I think that people would have no trouble with the idea that if we were going to go on a long, stressful car ride trip, we would get the oil changed and maybe make sure the tires are in balance and don't need rotated and things like that.
Right.
We should treat ourselves at least as well as we treat our vehicles, and and be sure that we're having a little bit of maintenance and the ability to check these boxes. The goal is, and it is in the tagline, move well, move often. Once you move well enough to be able to adapt in a positive fashion, we want you out there doing the fun stuff.
Right.
And it's, I don't want to discourage anybody from getting active, but choose your activities based on, do you move well enough to be able to adapt in a positive fashion? Sometimes your car needs a little bit of work. You don't drive your car harder to fix it.
Right.
You do something to help the vehicle. And so, like I said, we should probably treat ourselves as well as we do our vehicles.
Yeah, that should be a hashtag. You don't drive your car harder to fix it, which is a good segue to my next question, which is about cardio. So, so one thing, and this might kind of fall under like a mythological thing, because I have clients, I have friends, I've got family. They think they have to do, this is kind of like where my brain starts to shut down, because they think they have to do these like real high intensity things in order to get cardio. So I don't even know what cardio means. Like, to me, it's cardiovascular health.
Mm-hmm.
So cardiovascular health means eat properly, keep your body composition optimal, breathe well. That's going to help your cardio. Am I close?
Well, it's interesting because it can be a very wide ranging conversation. Hopefully when people say they need to do cardio, what we're talking about in the truest sense of the word is cardiovascular training, or training for your heart.
Okay.
Obviously from a sporting standpoint, we can look at things like triathletes and rowers and runners, and there are people that we would people and things that we would consider to be cardiovascular in nature. These all turn out to be more power and strength based activities, but we do them often, so you need to have the endurance to be able to do them often. In the truest sense of the word, I think that's what people are referring to. When you break it down by almost more of an energy system standpoint, we have these three primary energy systems within the body. We have alactic, we have glycolytic, and we have aerobic. Alactic is our very quick energy. It's ATP that's in the cells, ready to be used. Glycolytic is this kind of in between. We don't have enough oxygen yet to click into the aerobic system, which is very efficient. And we burn through the initial ATP. And so we have this middle system that kind of tries to fill in the gap. It's just not very efficient. And then we have the aerobic system, which is where now we're using oxygen, and the mitochondria are able to have this turnover of energy that is burned and energy that is replaced with how the cells function. So the problem is, and there's you can look up the Maffetone techniques and things like that. But if we ballpark three zones. And we could look at this from heart rate. We can look at this from intensity. They kind of work together. So high intensity, call it 95% heart rate. That's hard. That is really intense work.
Mm-hmm.
You're not gonna be able to do it that long. And then you're gonna need some rest before you can do it again. True aerobic work, and if you look at the Maffetone levels, he'll have somebody that's beginning exercise, 180 minus your age, to get a heart rate that you can work at. And if you're just getting new to exercise, or you're coming off an injury or illness, he'll even have you go 5 to 10 beats below that to get started. So just ballpark a 50-year-old, you're going to be 130 would be the starting point, and you'd probably be working below that if you were new to exercise. So that level of work is something that is sustainable. That's something you could do for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
The middle zone, and that's ballpark 60, 70% heart rate in that Maffetone kind of 180 minus your age heart rate. The middle zone is where we all love to be. I just call it the suck zone. It sucks to be there. It burns. It's hard. You sweat. And because it sucks, we think it's good for us. It was interesting. I was teaching an FMS workshop recently, and I taught and exposed everyone to a drill that happens to be very challenging. It's a tough drill. You have to have a pretty high level of mobility and control in order to do it. Very few people in the room were ready for that drill. So it sucked for all of them.
Right.
But they loved it. That was the one thing everybody kept trying to do because it was hard. And it's like, you don't need this. Right. Anyway, that was a little side, but we all love to be in this middle zone. So how do we wrap all this together? Because to your point, a healthy lifestyle supports the other things that we want to be doing. Like you said, you're eating well, your hydration is good, your sleep is good, you are maintaining a healthy weight. All of those things, diaphragmatic breathing and breathing techniques, pranayama, huge, just something that is big bang for your buck, and everybody should be doing some form of that. From a training standpoint, from an exercise standpoint, there are ways to elevate your heart rate into that Maffetone zone and accomplish cardiovascular conditioning. We do want to have a nice low resting heart rate. Mm-hmm. We want to have, we want to have the ability to sustain our work. We want to have the ability to hit these bursts of intense work. So there's a more well-rounded or holistic approach. A lot of people for cardio, a good walk does a lot for a lot of folks. So, like I said, kind of a wide-ranging answer because there's so many different ways to look at it. Are we looking at it from an energy system standpoint, heart rate standpoint, an overall program standpoint? There are differences, like interval training is popular, and there's people. I do kettlebell training, so my form of cardio. I accomplish that during my swings. Right now I'm training for the Sinister Standard, so I'm doing a lot of one-arm swings. And that's really how I'm accomplishing my heart training. So just a lot of different ways to look at it.
Gotcha. And I guess what I'm understanding, and which is great information, by the way. Thank you for sharing that. What I'm getting from it all, it's kind of seems to it goes back to like the very first step as like move well, move often. So if you have someone who's deconditioned, overweight, is, in your opinion, you can comment on this, is like, is it the best idea for them to start doing real high intense, I don't want to like say any name brands or anything, but like, let's go do some high intensity interval stuff with weights, and then do high intensity stuff on a rower, and then let's do jumping jacks. Someone who's like deconditioned to get cardio, is that the way to go? Or is it, let's make sure we're moving well, let's make sure that our joints are healthy and that we've got pretty decent body composition, then gradually work our way to that? Does that make sense?
Yes, and I in essence agree. I would not start that deconditioned person at a high intensity level. That is something that you build towards. What is high intensity will vary to the individual. Yeah. There are some deconditioned individuals for whom the 15-minute walk on the treadmill is a higher intensity effort. Right. Getting up and down off the ground will create higher heart rates because it's just very hard for them to move their body around. We'll talk about this here in a second, but I'll throw this out there. There is a sympathetic, parasympathetic stress aspect to taking on these things that we're new at or uncomfortable with. So we'll kind of throw that out there as maybe something we can discuss here in a minute. But I get somebody started, like if you come see me for a session, we're going to do a screen. I'm going to take a look at how you're moving. If you clear the baseline, what do you want to learn? Are you somebody that's here for kettlebell training, bodyweight training, barbell training? What do you want to do? What's your goals? And then we'll head that direction. If there's something we need to work on, I'll give you some drills to work on that. And then, just some good ground-based movement to keep everybody moving. And you want to get started. And dare I say that exercise is fun?
No.
Exactly. It has to suck in order for it to be good. And I apologize if that word is offensive, but it's a very quick way to make the point with the listeners. So
right, and we should probably run a disclaimer. Anything, and this is a friend of mine, Jane, said this at a seminar years ago, and it has always stuck with me. Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. If anything gets you off the couch and doing something, do that. Right?
Yep.
For sure. But maybe as you're getting deeper and deeper into the fitness realm or whatever, you may want to open your mind up to things that have a higher benefit and a less risk. Right? You can probably get similar outcomes with less craziness. It doesn't have to be like super varied, super wild, or super intense to get similar and safer results. Is that safe to say?
Absolutely. If we looked at fitness the way we look at investing, we would have we'd probably do better
right.
in general, because we want a high return. We want to put a little in, get a lot out. So, and we have different strategies to accomplish that. There are higher risk strategies that we might participate in a little bit more here or there at different times in our lives. But in general, that's not going to be the bulk of what we do. That's going to be something that we do occasionally or with a purpose. So right. That the high risk investment strategy. We want to have this steady, not going to get a super high return, but we want to have these good, steady return on our investment. We put a few dollars in, we get a few more dollars back. And that makes the bulk of what we do. So if we looked at fitness as from investing terms, we would be doing a little bit of high intensity. We'd be doing a lot of this middle zone to low zone stuff that kind of moves us forward, and cost benefit ratio. Right. What is it going to cost me to accomplish X? What is it going to cost me to invest in X? And what's the risk and what's the reward?
Yeah, excellent. That's an excellent analogy.
Yeah, if we looked at that, I think we'd make different decisions from a fitness standpoint.
Yeah, and the thing about it, and I've had this conversation, anyone who will listen to me, I've had this conversation with them. You know, it's not sexy. It's not sexy to try to explain that 10 to 15 minutes of kettlebell swings on the minute every minute is plenty, right? It's not sexy. You're not throwing up. You're not, wiping a ton of sweat off your brow. But it's efficient. An hour of yoga every other day may not be super sexy, but if you do it right, you're going to hit all the opposing muscle groups. You're going to balance things out, and you're going to feel balanced and strong. That helps you recover from the kettlebells or from the running, etc. But it's not super sexy. Well, at least at our studio, it's not super sexy because we don't use heat, and we don't use a lot of conventional yoga stuff that's out there. But it works.
But and correct me if I'm wrong, but like a basic sun salutation series, it's been around for a while. And it's been around for a while because it's the basics. And we have a quote in our StrongFirst manual from a spec ops operator that the elite are just better at the basics than everybody else.
Yeah.
And there was a movie years ago, Blue Chips, with I think it was Nick Nolte,
Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, and he was yelling at them in the locker room like, "I'll go give them our playbook." Because it doesn't matter what we're going to do. It matters how we're going to execute it. And so the quality, the basics, people, it's, as I like to joke, it's not rocket surgery. We just need some basics that we put time in on. And, there are sports that you can look at that athletes spend careers, sometimes long careers, trying to refine one movement or a set 2-3 movements.
Right. But like a putter, like if you just think about a golfer just trying to clean up his or her putt or his or her swing, not super sexy, but it requires precision. And if you don't have that down, like your game's going to be lacking, right?
Well, and definitely. And the first thing they're going to look at there is your stance. How are you setting up to the ball? What's your stance? And that's, those foundational things that, to your point, not sexy, not exciting. There's no secret sauce. There's just time put in honing the basics.
Awesome. So part of your travels and part of seeing all these thousands and thousands of human beings over the years, what's one thing that you just see, I don't know, is either like an opportunity, like if everyone could just do this one thing, it would help their fundamental stuff or would help the high-end stuff?
Breathing. Knowing, and there's different strategies for breathing. And breathing's not mystical or magical. It's just fundamental. Diaphragm's this super cool, awesome muscle that does a bunch of different things in our body and is just really neat in how it interplays with many different things. Diaphragm, pelvic floor talk nicely to one another. There's all kinds of aspects to breathing from just a fundamental standpoint. It can function in relaxation. It can function in performance. It can function in health. So I think if people were mindful of their breath, not obsessive, but mindful of their breath, then I think that would be one thing that if you're trying to put baby in a corner and you're trying to make me say one thing, breathing.
Now, I know you said diaphragm and pelvic floor and stuff, and not getting into the minutia, but is it nasal breathing, diaphragmatic breathing specifically, or just as long as you can move your diaphragm around?
At rest in particular, nasal only diaphragmatic breathing is a key. Okay. When they look at capnography and they actually look at gas exchange, because if you peel breathing back to what's happening inside. There's this cellular respiration going on where we're burning and replacing energy, and those byproducts have to be gotten rid of. One of the ways we get rid of those, in particular CO2, is via gas exchange in the lungs. Now, O2 CO2 balance actually needs to be maintained. There are people who will say, like, you can't blow off too much CO2. That's wrong. There is a proper ratio of O2 CO2 balance. And this will sound weird, but when you breathe through your mouth, you blow off too much CO2. There is a little bit of, at rest, nasal diaphragmatic breathing is a key. Once we start breathing for performance and volume becomes more important, certainly mouth breathing becomes an option. And then, you can ballpark, breathing from whether it's relaxation or performance. And performance, you can look at that from a sustained effort, how you're going to breathe for the sustained effort versus how you're going to breathe for something like a deadlift.
Right.
Those are different breathing strategies. So
right.
I think, So.
Okay. So just in general, nasal diaphragmatic breathing whenever you can.
Yep.
But there's different jobs, so there are different tools. So
yes.
Whereas maybe if you're about to pull 500 pounds off the ground, there might be a specific breathing technique for that you have to retain or you have to brace. But you don't want to walk around breathing like that. Right?
100%.
Okay.
100%. And that's, from a performance standpoint, and this is something we teach and work on within both StrongFirst and FMS. Your ability to generate tension is your ability to generate strength, power. If you generate strength quickly, you did something powerful. If you just have the ability to produce enough tension to accomplish the goal, you're able to produce strength. So that requires the different breathing patterns and everything. But the flip side of that coin is relaxation. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to learn and know how to relax. And most people are walking around in that middle zone again, where they don't know how to get fully tight and they don't know how to fully relax. So they just walk around with this kind of residual stiffness, and that doesn't feel good over time. So the ability to get tense, ability to relax, good skills to work on.
Excellent. So if you could go back in time and tell your younger self, assuming your younger self would listen, 3 things to help keep you active and alert. How old are you right now?
47, be 48 later this year. So
young
yes. No, I'm working on it. I can only do it a year at a time. So if I was going to go back and tell myself, in particular, specific to training, patience. I was sometimes in a hurry to accomplish things a little too fast. So I think patience is a key to many things. Patience is the key to power. Oddly enough, patience is the key to accomplishing many goals. So I think that's something to embrace. And there were, like I said, there were times where I just wanted to do what I needed to. Now, from a training perspective, I've really never injured myself training. I had one back injury back in 2003. That was kind of finishing off a high school back injury, and it was just kind of a stupid one of those.
It happens.
Shouldn't have done that. Had I displayed some patience, that probably wouldn't have happened.
Right.
So I've been very fortunate over the years. I've had other things get in the way. I've had other health things get in the way, and I have to start and restart my training because of various things that have gone on. And travel now is my biggest training roadblock. I'll get a good couple weeks of momentum going, and then on the road for 4 to 5 days.
Right.
Changes things. So I think the patience is a big one. Nutritionally, I could do better. I like to joke that I seek comfort at all times, and certainly one of the ways we do that is through food. So I could
Right.
certainly make some different dietary choices over the years, and I spent, and I still struggle with work-life balance.
Mm.
I think the one of the biggest things I would go back and tell myself 20 years ago is to be more mindful of work-life balance. And I will put in the hours. I will work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know what weekends are. I just if there's stuff that needs to be done, you do the work and you get it done. But I would certainly counsel myself on a better work-life balance.
Excellent. So patience there, I'm going to have to go back and review this podcast a couple of times. There are a lot of good hashtags in here. So patience is great. I love that one. And that's something, Mark, I had a podcast with Mark Rifkin, and he said, inch by inch is a cinch.
Yeah.
And, I kind of chuckled because it's so clever. It's like, yeah, man, that makes so much sense. And I think it's just an unfortunate thing that it's just something we learn as we get older. Whatever older means to you. I mean, there's certain things
Right.
now at 48 that you wouldn't have dreamed you would be doing when you were 38. Like you're 38, your periphery is like much more constricted.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start to, it feels like you kind of open up a little bit like, oh yeah, hold on. Maybe it's not so important that I get a 32 kilogram kettlebell overhead so fast, right?
Yep.
So inch
Patience.
by inch is, patience, that's huge. And nutrition is interesting because that's going to segue to the next question. And balance just in professional and personal. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Those are excellent attributes to consider. I'm trying not to drift off and consider them myself. I'll come back to them. So the next question was, if you had the three silos, to use your word, you've got exercise, nutrition, and recovery.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage would you give each? If the cumulative total had to be 100% of your time and energy going into that, how would you break those up?
Well, I don't know if we can divorce them.
Okay.
I hesitate to pull them apart because exercise should be a positive stress that enhances our lives and gives us physical capacity to do the things that we want to do and live life. Nutrition fuels that, and so obviously nutrition is very important. And recovery, I think it's very important, or it's interesting and important, but it's very interesting that we have these cottage industries that are growing up around recovery. I have been saying this for a couple of years now, and I'll continue to say it. Your best recovery strategy is proper programming. If you are programming yourself appropriately, you recover from the work you're doing. If you're constantly trying to figure out how to recover from your workload, try doing less.
Yeah. It's simple,
just as an idea.
Yeah. No, that's
but
great.
it is that. So I think those three things have such an interplay. Obviously, if your nutrition is poor, your recovery is going to be poor. Your exercise will struggle. If you're not doing enough exercise, then the nutrition component really can't have the full impact, and then you're not really worried about recovery because you're not. So those three things are so interrelated. But the recovery one to me is what's interesting in particular. And I mentioned earlier, like sympathetic, parasympathetic balance and stress and things like that. That sort of there is no exercise recovery bucket in your body and a stress recovery bucket in your body and a whatever recovery bucket, whatever else you might be doing to yourself. Right. There's only one recovery ability. Your body recovers from stress, period. whether that's a positive stress, hopefully like exercise when properly programmed, whether that's times of poor nutrition or stress on the body, whether it's work, whether it's relationships, whether it's sleep, all of those things, the interplay there is so strong, and our ability to breathe, to relax, to deal with stress is really, really important. And if you're already at red line, and so just a car analogy here, your car red line's about 6,000, 6,500 RPM. You cruise on the highway at 2,000. Well, it's a buffer zone, right?
Right.
Move red line down to 2,500 and then cruise on the highway at 2,000.
Right.
It's not going to go well.
Right.
You're not going to be doing that for too long. You start adding up all of those life stresses, sleep, work, relationship, nutrition, you're moving your red line down. You're able to do and recover from less and less and less, because that red line is just moving on down. You're so stressed, you're losing your buffer zone.
Yeah.
So opening up that buffer zone, and just being able to breathe, relax, and do stuff. That's important.
Yeah. Okay. So they're all interconnected: exercise, nutrition, and rest. But if I'm hearing you correctly, it seems like rest is either misunderstood or just kind of poo-pooed as like, yeah, okay, rest. But yes, rest is significant. If you're not training, you should be resting.
Yes.
Not necessarily sleeping, but at least calming. So just to take a couple steps back, you're mentioning the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. So for folks who may not know, that's the difference between fight and flight, which is sympathetic, and then rest and digest, which is parasympathetic.
Right.
So we want to be in fight or flight only when we need to be.
Yes.
If we're just sitting, chilling, like right now I'm speaking with Brett, I'm not in fight or flight mode.
I hope not.
Yeah. So I'm enjoying this conversation. I'm chilling. I'm breathing in my tummy. Hopefully, and I'm really hypersensitive to make sure Brett doesn't see my shoulders go up, that I'm clavicular breathing. I'm not breathing up here. I'm breathing down in my stomach, and I'm chill. So in a way, I'm recovering. I'm in a different part of the autonomic nervous system.
Yep.
So when we're training, we need to be in fight or flight to an extent, because it requires the nervous system's got to be a little more excited to get us through whatever we're getting through.
Yes. So I would say life in general is this teeter-totter of sympathetic, parasympathetic. We're always in and out of those particular things, if we're going to ballpark them in those two categories. So anything can put you sympathetic. Drive in Pittsburgh, you're probably going to end up going sympathetic nervous system. Hopefully if you're at home with your family, you're able to slide more parasympathetic. So we're always on that teeter-totter back and forth. And it's interesting you bring it up from a training standpoint, because too often people rely on excitation, a little bit of adrenaline, in order to do whatever they're going to do.
Right.
When I train, I'm usually listening to like Of Monsters and Men or Talking Heads. Like it's pretty chill, easy to listen to music. Like I'm not listening to heavy metal and banging my head and getting psyched for my set of swings.
Right.
There's Pavel quoted Peter Benchley from Jaws, actually, that it was the serenity of the invulnerable. It's this confidence, and you're doing the work. You don't have to get the adrenaline up in order to do that. You want to save that. The fight or flight system is, as the name would imply, it's danger mode. Like there's something going on that you need to get away from.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to tap into that all the time.
Right.
That's a bad thing from a training standpoint, that if I'm just going to do a set of swings and I'm like, smacking myself in the head and sniffing ammonia for a set of swings, like I'm burning my emergency system when I don't need to. And if people know anything about cars, and you've ever seen a car that has nitrous oxide,
right?
The nitrous oxide will make it go really fast, but it also burns up the engine,
mm-hmm.
destroys engines really fast. Every time, and I'm ballpark quotation marks, I'm an air quotes guy, so people can see me doing air quotes. But when you hit that fight or flight system on purpose, you purposefully juice your adrenaline to accomplish something, you burn the NOS in the car.
Yeah.
Well, that has a cost. So we want to accomplish as much as we can without having to go there.
Gotcha.
So it's an interesting thing. And there's a serenity to me to exercising. That is not a time for excitation for me. Now, if I was peaking for a powerlifting meet or doing something like that, there would be specific times where I would be using that boost, a little bit of NOS. NOS is what nitrous oxide is called. So I'd be using a little bit of that to get to that peak and to accomplish that goal. But that's something I'm doing with purpose. It's not, when we get done and I'm going to hit my workout, and I can assure you it will be a pretty chill experience.
Right. So, and that just goes back to like the non-sexy foundational stuff should be that most of the time. And then maybe once in a while, well, you've got your, you manage your Sinister certification is coming up. So you might ramp up your training for that, but it's just for that and then back down, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. So the thing with rest and recovery, I really like your idea of just a teeter-totter. Just try to, when you don't need to be excited and freaked out, try not to be excited and freaked out. Try to be calm, right?
Yeah. Life is going to give you excited and freaked out from time to time. That's just going to happen. But yeah, we want to be able to come back down on the other side.
We don't have to live there.
And,
okay.
And I don't want, like, I'm to my point earlier of, the fear mindset. I don't want people walking away thinking, well, I can't go sympathetic.
Right.
You're not going to live much of a life. Like there's bad things that happen that throw you sympathetic. There's fantastic things that happen that throw you sympathetic. So it just is.
Correct.
We just don't want to live there. We want to be on the teeter-totter.
Excuse me. And if you play the other side of the coin, you can't always be completely chill, right? It's like, oh, my house is burning down. Cool. Awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. You got to flip that switch. You got to teeter that totter, get out of your house.
Right.
Just not live there. Just not live in that excited, freaked out state. # freaked out. Awesome.
Exactly.
So do we have time for just one more kind of question thing? And this is a little more specific to, I don't want to say you are the person who invented this, right? There's nothing new under the sun, but I will say you are the first person that I saw in your earlier works when I was learning about better mobility, recovery, rehab and prehab, functional movement patterns and stuff. You were the first person who I saw that had the model of address trigger points first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say stretch, but mobilize the area, then set the pattern. How did you come up with that? And just tell me a little bit about that process. Like, why don't you set the pattern first, then mobilize, then address the trigger points?
So I will I appreciate the credit, but that is that's Gray Cook,
Okay.
and
Okay.
the SFMA. The clinical mantra is reset, reinforce, reload. So that sort of mindset of so I'm gonna ballpark soft tissue techniques.
Okay.
If we're talking trigger points, we are working with an LMT, licensed massage therapist, or we're working with a clinician who
Right.
can actually do that sort of detailed work. So for the self-applied techniques, foam roller, stick, things of that nature, it's a cheap, not great massage that can have some fantastic benefits, but it is what it is. I don't think the foam roller is self-myofascial release. I think it's just, like I said, it's a blunt object. We're squishing tissue. That can have some great effects. So I don't want to diminish it, but I do want to put it in its appropriate place.
Mm-hmm.
So you put quotations around that and throw that out there as the you of mankind. You are walking around with these kind of preset patterns. You've learned, your body has learned, oftentimes does not ask permission. It simply adapts and throws down patterns that it can. You don't have option A is not available, it'll go option B. Option B is not available, C. Like, it'll just keep going down the road until it accomplishes the thing that you ask for. Essentially, we ask our bodies a variety of questions. It provides us the best answer that it can. So we're walking around with these patterns, everything from how we sit, how we walk, how we stand, blah, 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 blah. So when I want to tap into or make a change on one of these patterns, remember the Etch-a-Sketch?
Yes.
Okay. For the younger people that may have never seen an Etch-a-Sketch, there's about 200 different Etch-a-Sketch apps that are available.
Okay.
So you can download it on your phone and you can do the Etch-a-Sketch. But, as you draw the picture with the little magnets and everything, and then if you don't like the picture or you want to draw a new one, you shake the Etch-a-Sketch, blank slate, draw a new picture. So soft tissue work is our opportunity to shake the Etch-a-Sketch. If I don't shake the Etch-a-Sketch, then I just keep putting picture over picture over picture over picture over picture. And we've all seen those copies of copies
Right.
that turn out not looking so great. So we want to shake the Etch-a-Sketch and we open an opportunity. The old picture is still in the background, but we open up this opportunity to have a better chance of drawing a better or newer picture. So that's how I use that reset. Gotcha. That reset is that shake of the Etch-a-Sketch. Once we've opened up that opportunity, if that thing had the message from the neurological system that it needed to be a little too tight or didn't have quite good motor control,
right,
then I want to do something to change that while the slate is blank, quotation marks, it's never blank. Once the slate is blank, I want to do the thing that needed to be done, whether it was creating a more open situation or the ability to control a particular motion. And then I want to load it. Load, as Gray says, is how we hit save on the document. So we want to give the body a chance to remember that pattern.
I got you.
So we shake the Etch-a-Sketch, we change part of the pattern that needed changed, and then we load it in order to save it. And so I think that works for a wide variety of applications.
And when you're saying load, that could be gravity, it could be a kettlebell, it could be a TheraBand. It's just a way to put a new line in on the Etch-a-Sketch, correct?
Yes.
So that it sticks.
You got
it. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And next time you speak with Gray, thank him, because that's a formula that I've been using on myself and with my clients for a decade. It has helped a lot. I mean, if you need case studies, just holler at me. I'm sure you got 16 billion of your own, but thanks for that. Really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like to mention or throw out while we have a captive audience?
Um, I, I think, we spend a lot of time talking about, patience and rest and everything. And I do think that, and part of that reload and building strength, strength is something that should be healthy. We want to be strong. Now, strong means different things to different people. And, doesn't have to be a 500-pound deadlift for a variety of folks. But I think strength helps with a lot of these situations. So I didn't want to leave with the impression that it's all rest and breathing and
Right.
the easy stuff. I mean, there's certainly work to be done and strength to be built, but it is in this more holistic, healthy mindset that being strong should be being healthy, and those are not those two things. I do not divorce. I think those two things go together.
Got you. And I remember you and I were talking earlier about a friend we have in common, Tim Schumann.
Yep.
And we were talking about what StrongFirst means. It's like it's simple. It's so simple. It's like StrongFirst. So then you may speak with someone and they say, well, mobility's got to be first. How do you mobilize? You need a certain amount of strength in order to mobilize. StrongFirst. So I think it's a great message, and I just think it's a great name overall. And I totally agree with you. Get it? You have to have certain amount of strength available at all times. Just even going back to what we were talking about at the very beginning, you've got to be able to push yourself up off the floor or crawl to a couch or jump up off the couch and run out of the house. If you don't have the fundamental strength to make those things happen, you may want to consider working on that, right? Get your strength up first.
100%. And we like to joke that it's strong first, not strong only.
Right. That's excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a variety of things. And Medvedev said, strength is a master quality. All other physical qualities are developed off of that. And as previously discussed, strength means many different things.
Yeah.
But that sort of base takes care of a lot of things. I was just sitting, as you were saying that, I was sitting here thinking, from a military standpoint, when you're in full kit, when you've got your body armor on and you've got your full kit, you're ballpark 80 to 100 plus pounds heavier.
Yeah.
And so if I'm a 200-pound guy, I weigh 300 plus pounds. Like, you need to be strong enough to pull me off the field should I take a hit.
Yep.
And so strength, speed. Yeah. I mean, it strength takes care of a lot of stuff.
It makes it StrongFirst makes sense.
Yes.
I mean, it's like, it's not just a brand name. It's a fundamental principle.
Well, and the mission of StrongFirst is to pursue, promote, and practice strength because we believe strength has a greater purpose. And that greater purpose can be many different things. It is certainly being healthy and able to live the life you want to live, or to survive the life that you're living at the moment. People working 2 jobs and trying to do the best for their family. Like, you're StrongFirst. You're living it. And so, strength has a greater purpose is something that I certainly believe in. And I've had great examples of that from my family. And I have certainly seen, I've been shown strength by my family and for all my life. And so it's something that I very easily grab hold of and believe in.
Awesome. Great. Well, Brett, before we go, will you please share website information where people can find out about you, StrongFirst, FMS, anything that you want people to know about, where they can learn more about being mobile and strong?
Sure. StrongFirst is just strongfirst.com. Functional Movement Systems is functionalmovement.com. I do have a little bit of a website, appliedstrength.com.
Okay.
I don't I don't do much with it. Um, and I don't do much with it because I write articles for StrongFirst. I write articles for FMS. I'm just busy. So my own website goes to the side.
Awesome.
I'd say those are the two big ones. I'm on the social medias, and I do it very poorly. I don't do enough of it. So I'm not even gonna take you there, but, yeah, strongfirst.com, functionalmovement.com. You can see some system partners on both of those websites and things that I think are good. And I have a bunch of articles on the StrongFirst website in particular, but functional movement as well.
Awesome. Well, great. Brett, thanks again. It was really, truly great to finally meet you and speak with you. For those of you who don't know, like, I've been following Brett for almost a decade. I was telling Brett before we started recording, like, my wife knows who Brett Jones is. And Brett Jones' work, even though it's, quote, in the kettlebell realm, has really deeply influenced the way I teach yoga. It's the way I apply it to yoga, the way we teach yoga at the studio and stuff like that, because it's all based on principles, and it's all based on moving well and developing strength. So I would encourage anyone, quote, kettlebell person or not, yoga person for sure, check out strongfirst.com and check out functionalmovement.com. It'll raise your game no matter what you're doing. All right. Awesome.
Thank you so much, Brett.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.